Hi, welcome to this part of my review featuring the Fabula Ultima TTJRPG. If you haven't seen the other parts of my review featuring this tabletop RPG that seeks to bring the Japanese video game RPG experience to your table, please check out the playlist in the description below. This time we are going to talk about invoking traits and invoking bonds to reroll and improve your checks. When it comes to invoking traits to reroll dice, player characters can attempt to turn the tide in their favor by calling upon one of their core traits, their identity, origin, and theme. After performing a check, a player character may spend one Fabula point and invoke one of their traits to immediately pick up one or both dice and roll them again, replacing the old roll with the new one. They may do so any number of times as part of the same invocation, but each new reroll of one or both dice will cost another Fabula point. You cannot invoke a trait if your character fumbled the check. And in this section they give you another terrible example. Here you have a player character invoking his trait to get through or succeed at a particular task or situation. That's fine enough. But then the game master says, "Care to describe the scene for us?" And then the player takes control of the non-player characters of the opposition. That is so wrong, that is so lazy on the part of the game master. Just like the game master doesn't take control of the player characters away from the players unless there is some sort of mind control effect or charm effect and the like, the players shouldn't take control of the non-player characters unless there is some sort of magical spell, psionic power that allows them to control the non-player characters. Now, after that terrible example, players should describe their actions in a way that is coherent with their identity, origin, or theme if they want to spend a Fabula point. Basically, you shouldn't do this when it feels forced within the narration, but then again, you as a player have final say on how and when to spend your Fabula points. When it comes to invoking a bond to improve your check, just like how a character's traits can be used to reroll dice, bonds, which is to say the feelings they harbor towards others, allow them to increase the result of checks. After performing a check, a player character may spend one Fabula point and invoke one of their bonds to add the strength of that bond to the result. This can only be done once per check. A bond should only be invoked when it makes sense. Just like traits, you shouldn't invoke them if it feels forced. We have an optional rule here, invoking to fail. If you use this optional rule, players may invoke their characters' bonds and traits to intentionally fail checks and earn Fabula points. Once per scene, before making a check, a player may describe how their character's bonds or traits prevent them from achieving success. This is done instead of performing the check itself. The check is then treated as an automatic failure with a result and high roll equal to 0. Then, the character gains one Fabula point. You cannot invoke to fail on support checks, and you cannot succeed at a cost on a check you already invoked to fail. And this concludes this part of the review. In the next part we are going to talk about the different types of checks. When it comes to invoking traits and bonds, some people that have not played this sort of role-playing games could get the wrong idea. They could see these traits and bonds as ways to cheat the game of trying to force some advantage on the situation based on your character's background. But this is not so. Invoking traits and bonds are basically the equivalent in skill-based role-playing games, or rather heavily skill-based RPGs, where you try to stick to your area of expertise. So let's say that your character has many points on the engineering skill, but very few points invested in knowledge, history of art. You're obviously going to take on the engineering-based tasks or situations, anything related to engineering, but you're going to stay away when it comes to history or knowledge checks related to the history of painting. So this is the same thing with bonds and traits. You try to focus on your character's identity, origin, and theme to take on different situations because that's what you do both in fiction and in real life. We try to stick to those areas where we are more knowledgeable about, or experienced in, or skilled at, because in those areas you have a higher chance or higher probability to succeed. And when it comes to bonds, this is a staple of many Japanese role-playing games, but also anime and manga, where the strength of the connections, the emotional bonds between the players, or rather the characters in a group, they serve as fuel or power to boost your attempts. And just like in real life, if you're doing something for someone you love, you usually do that much better. Or it could be a bond of rivalry, it could be anything. Maybe you have a rival, so you try really hard to succeed at whatever it is you are trying to accomplish or be successful at. However, I would recommend that the game master only allows one try of invoking such a thing. That is, if a player says, when I am trying to decipher this ancient tome because I have the black mage trait, then I want to reroll my dice. But the book isn't about black magic, maybe it's a book about social etiquette. So the game master may rule out that it doesn't apply. And that should put a stop to things there, because otherwise the player is going to be like, well, in my school of black magic, we actually respected social etiquette above all things. And he's going to try to twist things or turn things around in a way that he always gets the advantage. It's valid if the background has been clarified as such at the start of the campaign, because otherwise it feels as if you are cheating. Thank you for watching this part of the review, and thank you for your likes and your comments. If you have any questions or comments, please let me know. And thank you so much to those of you that are going the extra mile to support the channel. If anyone else wishes to further support the channel, the information on how to do that will be in the description below. Once again, thank you, and see you later.